Up until 2018, I was an iPhone user all along. I'd always have my iPhone as the primary phone, and whichever Android phone I was reviewing at that time would then naturally become my secondary phone. But that changed last year when I moved entirely to the Android ecosystem, primarily because the cameras were not as good on the iPhone XS Max, which was always in touching distance for me. But all that has changed this year when Apple announced the iPhone 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max. Bad names, but great phones overall. It's been a while since Apple announced the iPhone 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max, and this is what I think of it after the hype and why I shifted back to the iPhone ecosystem. I'm Ershad from Mr. Phone, and this is our review of the iPhone 11 Pro 1 month later. But before we move on, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon right next to it to get notified whenever Mr. Phone puts out an awesome new tech video. The iPhone 11 Pro carries forward the same design ID started by the iPhone X, at least from the front. But most of the design differences are on the rear, where you have this new triple camera setup, a frosted glass matte back, which is a very different feel and finish, and of course the Apple logo, which is now in the dead center on the rear. And of course that swanky new midnight green color that just looks stunning. Our unit is the plain old gold variant, which doesn't look too bad either. Now that triple camera setup seems to be polarizing opinions. Some people hate it while others love it. I don't care too much about it because functionally it adds a lot of value. In any case, this design will help distinguish the 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max easily from the older iPhones. The module, unlike the matte frosted glass finish of the rear, has a more conventional glass finish, and it is raised ever so slightly. And the camera rings on this module are raised slightly more. Essentially, you get 3 layers, and despite all of these layers, the machine engineering, as is the case with most Apple devices, is just impeccable. And of course, like Jerry Rig Everything pointed out in his video, you just cannot scratch this phone at all. As a matter of fact, I wanted to actually use the phone without the case. The soft touch feel of the back is just fantastic. The entire design has the typical Apple polish and refinement that you cannot find in many other phones. You still get the same IP68 certification, but now you can go up to a maximum depth of 4 meters of water for 30 minutes. Now the logo at the center was supposed to be the placeholder for the reverse wireless charging feature that was rumored before launch. Since that never happened, I guess the central placement stays. Moreover, there's no Type-C charging port this year either. You will have to make do with the Lightning port, which I'm guessing should change next year. Also gone is the really useful 3D touch module that I was actually a big fan of. I know many iPhone users didn't care to use it, but I will terribly miss the feeling of the display pressing like a button when 3D touching the keyboard to move the cursor. You can still do that using the excellent haptic touch engine, but it is not too great. And you have to hold for a really long time to enter that jiggly mode to delete apps. Also, I miss the haptic feedback while typing on the default keyboard app. I think Apple is trying to save battery life by not enabling it. However, you can use an app like Gboard to actually get haptic feedback, and it is damn good. Oh yeah, and before I forget, still no headphone jack and still no 3.5mm dongle in the box. Just embrace the wireless life already, guys. The iPhone 11 Pro has the smallest 5.8-inch display in the entire iPhone 11 lineup, and that makes it handy to hold and use with one hand. Actually, I find it very good because it feels like a phone and not like a mini tablet. And I don't have to say much about this AMOLED panel. This is by far the most color accurate, most bright, contrast heavy and crisp display you will find on a smartphone. If you don't believe me, take a look at the DisplayMate scores. That said, placed right next to an iPhone XS, I couldn't tell any difference in display quality as such. Most importantly, I don't know how that 20,000:1 contrast ratio spec helps, but it is there if you want to flex. You see the difference when you place it next to the iPhone 11's LCD panel, especially when you look at HDR content on Netflix. The difference in black levels is immediately apparent. For multimedia watching, the iPhone 11 Pro's AMOLED panel is pretty awesome, and pairing that with the new spatial audio Dolby Atmos enabled speakers only amplifies the experience. The speakers don't get as loud as the Pixel 3 XL, but they sound extremely full and rich. However, that whole surround sound spiel feels a little stretched. These are tiny speakers inside a phone. please don't go in expecting a proper surround sound effect. I tried the speaker in regular everyday settings like an office, in my house with a fan whirring on top of me, inside a cab and more. But I couldn't hear any semblance of spatial audio as such. That said, if you do listen intently, you might notice a slightly better sound effect, but it's not so much that it changes the whole game or anything. And when it comes to audio quality through headphones and earphones, as usual, Apple continues to excel. But yes, if you are an audiophile, the LG G8s ThinQ will be a better bet. While the display and the whole multimedia experience is great, the notch is still an eyesore. But you get the industry-leading Face ID tech that now works at certain angles as well. It's not like you can place it on a table and look at it to unlock the phone, but just that the Face ID is more sensitive now. It is now a pretty robust and secure tech that has come far since Apple announced it first on the iPhone 10. The other thing that I noticed in my long usage period is the display attracts micro abrasions that are visible on the black screen under a tube light. But for the most part, you should be able to avoid them if you use the phone carefully. Now, this is not just a problem with the iPhones, but it is also a problem with Android phones, primarily because Corning's Gorilla Glass solution is now actually more shatterproof than just scratch-proof. Now, I know that a lot of people will actually put a screen guard on the display as soon as they've picked up the phone. That should alleviate any concern that you have with scratching on the display. The serious upgrades this year to the iPhone 11 Pro comes in the form of triple camera setup on the rear. All the cameras, the regular wide and ultra wide and the telephoto camera with 2x optical zoom are actually 12 megapixel cameras. Apart from this, there's also the new 12 megapixel true depth camera as well. Before I even break down my findings, let me tell you that the iPhone 11 Pro has the best cameras on a smartphone, with a disclaimer that the Pixel 4 is yet to launch and the Mate 30 Pro hasn't landed in India yet. The camera app has been upgraded visually. While the core modes are the same, the black border around the regular frame turns transparent to show you the area that the ultra-wide angle camera can capture. There's also a new capture outside the frame setting that is on by default for videos and not for photos. Switch it on and at any given point of time the camera captures more of the frame that it will delete automatically after a few days. So if you go into the Photos app, you will notice a few pictures with a box and star on the top. This means you can reframe the image for a better perspective. Trust me, when it works, it comes in super handy. The main 12 megapixel camera has seen a serious upgrade in terms of dynamic range and details. The color processing is very close to natural this year compared to the iPhone XS Max. You will absolutely love the pictures that come out of this phone, especially if you are a stickler for good dynamic range in your shots. The ultra wide angle camera offers a 120-degree field of view. In fact, it is so wide that more often than not, my finger would come in the way of the shot. It is not surprising that pictures from this camera are not as detailed as the main camera or even the telephoto one. I could also notice some highlight clipping and exposure blowouts too. The telephoto 2x optical zoom camera is crisper than usual now. This brings us to the one thing that makes these cameras special: the color science parity. It is just crazy good. I mean, the algorithm has been tuned so meticulously that the pictures coming from these individual cameras look like they have been captured by the same camera with different lenses, just like you would on a DSLR. Similarly, all the camera modes such as panorama, slow motion and time lapse are open for all the other cameras as well. This is seriously very cool. Moving on, I shot a few portraits and it continues to create that DSLR-like bokeh except for a few edge detection issues that should be ironed out soon. You can now shoot portraits with the main camera as well. And the cool new mode is the high key mono portrait. The high contrast monochromatic portrait shot looks extremely professional. In fact, you can also change the level of exposure apart from the f-stop. But when it comes to selfies, the 12 megapixel camera on the front shoots 7 megapixel close-up shots by default. But when you switch the phone to landscape mode, it automatically switches to a 12 megapixel wide-angle selfie to capture more people in the frame. You can shoot wide-angle selfies in portrait orientation as well. The selfies look great with natural skin tones. If you like capturing selfies, you will appreciate the pictures from the 11 Pro's front camera. And there's also the 120 FPS video recording chops of the front camera. Of course, it's called Slow-fi, which is weird, but you can do that and it's really cool. About 4K recording, all the 4 cameras can shoot 60 FPS footage with image stabilization and excellent audio recording as well. Yes, I'm talking about even the front camera. Recording test time. I'm shooting at 4K 30 FPS using the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus and the iPhone 11 Pro. You can check for image quality, image stabilization and the sound recording, as I will slightly pan around and show you guys what happens when the light's against me and how these phones can handle dynamic range and what the image looks like. There you go. Looks pretty cool. By the way, the iPhone 11 Pro can also shoot at 4K 60 FPS as well. The iPhone 11 Pro is undoubtedly the best smartphone camera for shooting videos. It's the dynamic range in 4K video recording to judge for yourself. In 4K 30 FPS using the wide angle camera, and it looks really nice as we walk and show you guys how this looks. In fact, the iPhone can actually shoot 60 FPS as well. I'll slightly pan around right now and show you guys how these phones can handle dynamic range with the wide angle camera. The iPhone's just looking stunning. It is phenomenal. Also, the slow motion videos on the iPhone 11 Pro, while limited to 240 FPS, are still the most detailed and clean looking of the slow motion videos I've shot. Obviously, the new cool feature that Apple has finally added is a dedicated night mode. It fires at will and allows you to adjust the shutter speed as well. It is pretty sensitive and fires up at the right moment. In fact, if you place the 11 Pro on a tripod, you can open up a 30-second shutter on the phone. The pictures using the night mode are more true to life, but the P30 Pro still beats the iPhone 11 Pro when it comes to light sensitivity and exposure. However, the iPhone 11 Pro definitely comes in at a comfortable second spot when it comes to low light photography, and that is saying a lot. Oh wait, but there is more. In medium lighting, that is somewhere between low light and bright, Deep Fusion kicks in on the new iPhones. It is currently active on iOS 13.2 developer beta. Deep Fusion is an advanced form of smart HDR where the phone takes multiple exposures and reads the pixel level information to enhance the finer details. Stuff like sweater threads or a very textured book cover look crisper and more refined. This is only visible at 100% crop. So if you are a casual photographer looking to post your pictures on social media, this jump in details won't matter to you. But for photography nerds like myself, such kind of computational algorithm is exciting. Apple has created something legitimately awesome here. The iPhone 11 Pro has the best set of cameras that I've used on any phone till date. I'm currently running the phone on the iOS 13.2 developer beta just so that I could check out Deep Fusion. But iOS 13 has seen a string of updates within a month of the software going live. After iOS 13, there was iOS 13.1, iOS 13.1.1, and now it is on iOS 13.1.2 with iOS 13.2 right around the corner. All of these updates were issued to fix a few bugs here and there. In fact, I faced one where Paytm would keep signing me out when I was on iOS 13.1.1. Anyway, the new feature additions to iOS 13 that immediately stood out for me are: 1. The dark mode that looks really cool and is tastefully done. Secondly, the ability to pair PS4's DualShock 4 and Xbox controller for gaming. You can make use of this feature to elevate your gaming experience on Apple Arcade as well. With the addition of Apple Arcade, I'm convinced that if you want a gaming phone, just purchase one of the new iPhones. I'll add a link to my full text review of Apple Arcade in the description below. There are more editing tools in the Photos app, which now has the ability to edit videos as well. Apple has also updated system apps such as Maps, Notes, Reminders, and Safari for an upgraded experience. I really love the new time-synced lyrics in Apple Music, which is damn cool. Another tiny update that made a huge difference to me is the fact that you can now long press to directly access the devices connected to Bluetooth or any Wi-Fi network. And finally, my most favorite one, a robust privacy and security feature where Apple gives you the choice to decide access to the internet and Bluetooth for third-party apps. It goes without saying that I'm probably missing out on a lot of tweaks. Having said that, iOS 13 is a completely different experience compared to Android, but if it is better than Android or not is a discussion for whole another video, which I don't want to do right now. Every year with the new iPhones, we get new system on chips designed in-house by Apple. This year it is the A13 Bionic, which is touted to be more powerful than the outgoing A12 Bionic. You also get 4 gigs of RAM on both the iPhone 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max. Essentially, the performance is just excellent, but I didn't find that much of a difference between the previous iPhone and this one. Daily usage is fantastic with a smooth experience that you get thanks to the 120Hz touch refresh rate on the phone. Yes, it is not a 90Hz panel by default like the OnePlus 7 Pro, but the iPhone's 60Hz panel with its 120Hz refresh rate feels like 90Hz anyway. It is extremely smooth. Anyway, here's a handy comparison of the Antutu Geekbench and storage benchmark scores on different phones, and you can tell that the iPhone 11 Pro is just leagues ahead of other phones. The generation gap in performance continues to exist. Clearly, the iPhone 11 series of phones are the most powerful phones you can buy today. Even the gaming experience on graphically intensive games like PUBG and Call of Duty Mobile is killer. I just hope Tencent introduces the extreme 60 FPS mode in HDR setting for iPhones soon, because trust me, gaming on the iPhone is absolutely killer. Since I have used the phone for a long time, I can also tell you with a certain amount of confidence that you won't face a single slowdown or lag even if you push it to its limits. However, I did notice that the phone got slightly warm after an hour or so of Call of Duty Mobile. But it wasn't so much that we should set off an alarm or something. The iPhone 11 Pro now comes with Wi-Fi 6, which means faster throughput and more stable connection. But the most exciting addition is the new Ultra-Band U1 chip. This chip can track the spatial relationship between objects within a range that is wider than Bluetooth. Applications and use cases for the U1 will pop up soon, but you can currently understand how it works with the new and upgraded AirDrop. Once you point your phone in the direction of another phone with the U1 chip, the icon of the phone is moved to the top of the listing. It understands the spatial relationship with the other phone with the U1 chip. Apart from this, the call quality and the network reception has gently been great on the iPhone 11 Pro, but I did face a few call drops, and that is most definitely Airtel's issue and not the phone's. Apple claims that the battery life has become better on the iPhone 11 Pro, and well, that is true. The 3046 mAh battery inside the 11 Pro returned a screen on time of 5 hours and 30 minutes on an average. I would take the phone out of charge at around 7 AM every day, and by the time I'd put it back to charge at around 11 PM, there would still be around 15% left. And with iOS 13, Apple can actually do trickle charge when you're keeping it for charge overnight, where it trickle charges from 80% to 100%. Anyway, my findings were based on moderate usage with light gaming, some social media, surfing, and a few other things. Now, this is still pretty good. Of course, you can push it and deplete the battery life by the end of the day, but it will easily last you a day on moderate usage. However, is this the best battery life on a premium flagship phone? No, but it is still better than the Note 10 Plus, the S10 Plus, and the Pixel 3 XL. Furthermore, Apple bundles an 18-watt fast charger in the box, which could charge the phone from 0 to 100 in 1 hour and 31 minutes in my testing. Obviously, there are Android phones that can do it faster, but for an iPhone, this is pretty great. You can also charge the iPhone 11 Pro wirelessly, so there's that. A month later, the iPhone 11 Pro deserves all the hype. In fact, it's so good that I am definitely making a switch to this phone. If you're an Apple fan, you must too. In fact, if you're currently using an iPhone 10 or older, it makes sense to actually pick up an iPhone 11 Pro or 11 Pro Max, whichever size you prefer. Now, if you're using an iPhone XS or a XS Max, you can actually wait it out and pick up the 2020 iPhones instead. But yeah, the iPhone 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max don't come cheap. If you want a more affordable iPhone, something like the iPhone 11 could make sense for you. But if you're someone like me, you will actually appreciate the thinner bezels and the AMOLED display on the iPhone 11 Pro for sure. Having said that, are the iPhone 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max really pro phones? Well, I don't think that, but maybe for someone who's moving from an iPhone 8, this might feel like a pro upgrade. That said, I think Apple has really upped the ante here with the iPhone 11 Pro, and that's going to give a tough fight to the Android landscape. You get better cameras, you get a great display, and you get excellent fit and finish that only Apple can achieve. Now, you know what? I know a lot of industry friends who generally avoid the iPhone like a plague have actually gone ahead and picked up one this year, because truly this year the iPhone is worth the purchase. So what do you guys think? Do let me know in the comment section below. This is Ershad from Mr. Phone. See you guys in the next one.